Greetings, loyal viewers, and welcome to one of the quicker countdowns I've done thus far, and that's the top 6 worst skins in Nitro-Fueled. At least thus far, anyway. Despite being shorter and quicker, this one was still a bit tough to write for, simply because I love Nitro-Fueled, and love a lot of the skins that Beanox has done, but there are some that I just feel aren't as appealing to me as others. A few things to set straight before we get started. Firstly, only one skin per character. Basically, if I pick one skin from one character like Crash, Coco, Cortex, etc., then I can't pick any others from that same character, as I feel as it would make this list a bit more interesting. Secondly, I'm only going to include legendary skins, basically skins that aren't just recolors and can either be only bought at the pit stop or earned through the Grand Prix Nitro gauge. Thirdly, podium animations will not be included as a bonus factor, as it would make the list feel a little bit too unbalanced for me. And fourthly, to remember that this is all my opinion on this list, and that if you all like these skins I'm about to include, that's great. And if anything, I don't dislike many of these skins, they're just the ones that just don't do it as much for me. Anyways, let's begin the countdown of my 6 least favorite skins from Nitro-Fueled. I'm gonna start this list with a bit of a safer choice with my least favorite skin from my most favorite character in the franchise, Dingodile. Now, the skin is a funny idea, as it just seems like a bit of a contradiction of his character, unless it's for a paint war, which, considering the mask, would not surprise me. And the design is colorful and all, but it's just simply not as fun to look at as some of my personal favorites, including the other legendary Dingodile skins. And don't get me wrong, I love the little details like the dried up paint everywhere, unlike his mask and hat and everything, but as a skin for one of my favorite character goes, this one just didn't resonate with me as much. From one safe choice to another, we got Fisherman Polar. Again, like the last entry, this one is nice to look at and does make some sense for Polar since, well, he's a friggin' bear. But also, again, it just isn't as imaginative to look at as some of the others out there, and on top of that, there just really isn't too much else I can really say about it to even really justify it being higher up on the list at all. Like I said, I like it fine, and it does fit Polar well, but that's really all I can say about it. If I had to pick my least favorite motorsport skin for the Nitro Squad though, it would have to be the one from who is, in my honest opinion, my least favorite, and that is Liz. Don't get me wrong, this skin still looks nice, but it's just not as appealing to the eyes as the other ones. The only other motorsport skin I considered for this list was Amy's, but not only do I honestly like Amy's color scheme a bit more, but there's just something about the hairstyle that I like just that little bit more in comparison as well. Overall, not a bad skin by any means, but definitely my least favorite of the Nitro Squad, and in my opinion, worthy enough to be on this list. I may get a bit of flack for this choice, I'm not gonna lie, and to be honest, Racer Crunch did come pretty close, but that's also because I'm not a big fan of NASCAR, but I ultimately went with this skin simply because of the color scheme. While it's certainly not bad or anything, it just doesn't quite pop as some of the other skins out there. And on top of that, this one is a little more nitpicky, but bear with me here. Had Crunch's goatee not been visible under the mask, as you can kind of see there, I would not have been able to even guess that this was Crunch unless the game told me that. It would just be a generic muscle cartoon dude in a dirt bike suit. Say what you will about Racer Skin, and to be honest, like I said, I'm not a fan of NASCAR, but at least the colors are appealing, as in my opinion, blue just looks really good on him. Had they at least gone with a slightly better color scheme, then this honestly would hardly be on the list, especially this high. As is though, it's still not that bad of a skin in my eyes. Which is more than I could say for my least favorite skin for the current Grand Prix thus far. My lord, who thought just having what essentially just looks like a glorified recolor of Krunk with maybe just a few changes to his uniform was a good idea? Because let me tell you, it's not one of the better ideas in all honesty. I mean, sure, there's a couple of notable differences, but aside from that, it's just so unimaginative for this kind of for a design I do generally kind of enjoy. I mean, they could have done something a bit more creative than this, like maybe have him wear clothing that is made more from dinosaur bones as part of his attire, for as grim as that may sound, or have him look more primitive and savage than his former self. Anything but this. The only saving grace that kept it from being at number 1 for me personally is that the colors do look surprisingly really nice. Not as appealing as some of the other ones out there, but definitely something that pops and is nice enough on the eyes that saves it from being at the number 1 spot. Although, speaking of number 1, I know I'm definitely gonna get a fair deal of hate for this choice, but this one is by far my least favorite skin of them all, in my personal opinion. At least in the legendary term. Now, to be fair though, a lot of that has more to do with the simple fact that out of all the Crash designs from the franchise that fans remember, Entrance is easily among one of my least favorites out there. It's basically a pink alien egg thing on a robot's body. Do I even need to say more about how uninteresting that sounds on paper? I mean, I guess I can give this skin a little bit of credit for being a little goofier looking, but in my opinion, I just don't think that's really enough to really make it that much better or even stand out that much, or at the very least be any funnier than that of the base skin, which, like I said, is rather unimaginative. Even the color scheme just doesn't really do that much for me either. For as unimaginative a legendary the last entry was, at least the colors popped in unique and varying ways that at least looked rather nice. This, well, it may make you chuckle at least maybe once or twice just from how much of a matter of fact this design is, it is, in my honest opinion, the worst skin of CTR Nitro. So, that's my countdown for today, and I do want to reiterate that if you like any of these skins, and if you disagree with my reasons, feel free to comment down below, and also be sure to share with me on what were some of your least favorite skins and why. With that said, I'm King Gargantuas, and I'll see you all next time.